Spectre, Craig's last Bond. So, this is our review for Spectre. It is the first big group review that is coming up on the channel. My name is James Rod.
I'm Matt.
Aiden Matt and Tom.
And these are the people, if you've seen my latest video, who gave me the nickname of Jimmy. Didn't you?
Yes, we're very sorry.
These are the guilty culprits. When a big movie like Spectre comes out, we're going to try and do reviews like this where we can discuss the movie and have conversation rather than me just talking.
It's going to be a full-on party when the new Star Wars comes out. There's going to be like it's going to be hats and everything, party hats.
We had to step it up for Star Wars. So, Matt, what's your initial kind of reaction to Spectre?
A nice way for Daniel Craig to go, but I didn't walk out with the hairs on the back of my neck standing around.
For me, I think the film matches the excitement of the trailer, which with me was bland and flat.
I think he tried a little bit too hard, maybe a little bit too hard, but it was still enjoyable as a film.
For me, it suffers from sequel fatigue, where you have a really, really good movie, and then the follow-up movie, you're like, this has to be better than what's come before it. And it's a good movie, but it's not at that level that we were hoping it was going to be. An interesting thing for me, coming off the back of that, is when I spoke to you immediately after Spectre, Aiden, what was the first thing you said to me?
I can't remember.
I preferred Skyfall. And
Yeah.
that's the problem with movies like this, which are good movies, but aren't as good as what's come before. We automatically compare it to what's already come before, and it's difficult to kind of look at it as a standalone film.
Especially if you're expecting something the same, because it wasn't just it hadn't got the same tone, it hadn't got the same feel to it. It was more of a throwback to the classic Bonds than the sort of grittier thing that Skyfall was.
I think for Bond, because it's a Bond franchise, you can't just look at it as a standalone film. You kind of have to look at it as a sequel just as much as a standalone film.
Okay, so Spectre stars Daniel Craig, Christoph Waltz, Lee Sundu, Ralph Fiennes, Naomi Harris, Ben Wilshaw, and Andrew Scott. I didn't butcher too many of those.
Only one.
So the general narrative for this movie, as the movie only came out just over 24 hours ago, we will not be going into spoilers. So the initial storyline is Bond's gone rogue. He has been given a mission by the now deceased Anne.
Yeah, Judy Dench's, which exposes him to a whole new sort of a new organisation, pretty much, that encompasses all the people the previous three have been involved with, and the sort of main stories he goes after them.
So after that, he kind of pursues Spectre, which is an organisation that it turns out, have kind of been involved throughout all 4 Bond movies, and it's a nice way to kind of wrap up Daniel Craig's Bond. I think it's time for him to go now, and we see a new Bond come in, either with Sony, who lose the rights in 2 years' time, or when the new guys take over from Sony. Talking about Daniel Craig, it's a good place to start talking about characters. Yeah. So what did you make of Daniel Craig's Bond in this film? I actually preferred him to Spectre in this movie. That's my personal opinion. Not Spectre, Skyfall, I thought it was a more interesting Bond than the one we saw in Skyfall. I actually really liked it. What did you guys think? Tom?
I thought it was absolutely sharper than he was in Skyfall. I think Skyfall made him a very three-dimensional character, gave him a history, gave him all his problems he was having. Whereas in this one they gave him a bit of sort of emotional motivation, but at the same time he was sort of just like the older Bonds, who was just doing his job and then going rogue, because he does that quite a lot, to be fair. It's not a new thing, is it? And then it wasn't as a well-developed character. It was, but it didn't develop any further, where he did a lot of development in Skyfall, which I appreciated quite a lot.
Kind of Tom's point, I didn't feel it was developed. I mean, what you saw is what you got. There wasn't many complexities in the emotion, especially compared to the other 3 films, Casino Royale, Skyfall, and Quantum of Solace. I thought it didn't have that ruthlessness that I associate with Daniel Craig as in the other films either.
Now, with the main villain, we cannot reveal his name because I don't think it has actually been announced
No,
yet.
it's not even on IMDb.
So, what do you guys think about the main Bond villain?
I think it didn't have enough screen time. I think it'd be nicer to have like seen a bit more of him, also get to like know the character a bit more, rather than just like skimming over him almost.
I think the build-up to the character was really good. It made him seem really villainy, if that's the way to put it. But I think after the grand reveal, he didn't really seem intimidating or very nasty at all, really.
They try, and there's one moment very close to the end where I think they get it, but most of the time they fall short of it. The first time we see him is stunning. The way it's shot, everything about it is really clever. And the way they lead up to him, the way they talk about him is really good, but then he's not as good as the Bond villain in Skyfall.
They sort of went back to the old, him being a bit of almost a friendly character and then turning nasty, but he wasn't fundamentally the sort of, he never got the feeling that he was that nasty, and so they had to turn it too aggressively. And he went from being basically his friend to just being like almost too nasty. It was a bit like, it went from sort of like happy true friends sort of type thing, where it's all really happy and then really nasty straight away. And it was a bit messy, I think.
And particularly with the way they set it up, they could have had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
It could have been really nasty once we've learned about him within the context of the other 4 films, but he just doesn't deliver. 2 people, male characters, I do think did deliver in this film were Ralph Fiennes, who doesn't really not deliver.
Yeah, so that's pretty much a given, I think.
And then Q. I was really impressed with him in this movie. In most of Skyfall, he was a bit meh.
Yeah.
He had one scene in the tube scene which you think, I like this character, and they continue from that point of reference.
You brought the right cue through rather than the sort of cue that nobody really liked. It was just a bit like, just there.
We don't get any silly pyjama references.
No,
and it had more screenplay as well. I think he was rewarded by his very good performance in Skyfall with more screen time this time, and it was the good side of him, the good side of Q, and the humorous side, as well as kind of the serious nerdy side.
It's nice to give Moneypenny a bit more time as well, I think, rather than...
She did nothing for me.
I think those 3 work well as a trio.
Yeah.
They work well.
Without Moneypenny, they would be missing just that little
It's
bit.
like nice. It's like I kind of like the idea of like Bond being like the man on the ground, and then like Q and Moneypenny like back doing all the behind the scenes work. I kind of like that idea.
Especially within the because he's gone rogue, he sort of ended up with a team around him that was like also slightly going rogue as well as not doing. And I can't think what it reminds me of. There's a certain film where there's the one agent and a new little team around him that aren't that telling what's going on.
The problem is
the London dynamic quite interesting.
The problem is we've just seen this
Yeah.
in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation.
Yes.
And Mission Impossible is a better film,
I've not seen
in my
Impossible, I
opinion.
cannot comment.
But it's a similar concept, gone rogue. But for me, it wouldn't have been the same without her, but she did nothing for me.
She could have done more.
Now the new Bond girl,
Leia Seydoux, so he was not mistaken.
Madeleine Swan.
Yes.
She was a really good Bond girl. What did you guys think of her?
There was more of a backstory behind her, I thought, and she was more feisty, I thought, this time as well.
It was a new dynamic for a Bond girl, which was quite nice, that it wasn't just the bad guy's girlfriend who is fed up with his shit. and so held to bond instead,
And-
not to reveal what it actually was.
And it's nice to see a female character with a bit of meat to her
A
character.
character.
Not her, meat to her character. And you though you could understand where her motivations,
Yeah.
etc. She had a character arc
Yes.
Rather than just-
She was a 4D character, not just a 2D.
rather than just the Bond girl.
She was a character in her own right, rather than just sort of. There was still the characteristic add-on girl at the beginning, and I think they got that over and done with, and that was sort of thing you expect. And then it was nice that there was the other one that wasn't quite so. Just sleeps a bit and finds out what he needs to know, and then moves on again.
Now, Andrew Scott's character, who we can't talk too much about, I'm just going to say it did nothing for me.
He was far too predictable for me.
Yeah. And he wasn't believable for me. He walks in a particular scene, and he just didn't seem to fit into it, so it didn't make me believe in the character at all.
Things that aren't too much of a spoiler. He's supposed to be like the head of Joint Intelligence, but he looks like he's about 30 and he's younger than all the other, as you would expect a senior minister in the government to be. He doesn't look like he's old enough or experienced enough. And you feel like he's got the part on the back of Moriarty and Sherlock.
And he always seems to look away from the character, from the camera. If he's meant to be this kind of mean, bossy character, you would have thought he'd have more of a stage presence. I didn't really get that from his character at all.
Admittedly, his character does allow the film to question kind of security and also how easy it is to store information.
His character.
And the web and those kind of scenes question some quite interesting kind of
He
subject
did feel like a
too.
segue into becoming almost a political film. Like it
Yeah.
felt a bit.
It was more a way of making a statement rather than a
not
character.
Was it George Orwell?
George Orwell.
It felt a bit Orwellian the way they started saying, "Oh, actually, this is the bad thing." And it's a bit. It felt a bit like they were trying to get their own political agenda.
Now we need
Which is a
to
very nice
talk
thing.
about, it's a Bond film, so we need to talk about the set pieces. So the car chase and stuff like that, they did nothing for me. There was nothing spectacular about them. The only one I did like was the opening one. Particularly how they opened the film with that one-held camera. I really liked that, but most of the action sequences did nothing for me.
I felt they were too long, to be fair. I thought, particularly the opening scene, it's the one continuous camera movement, which I thought was really artistic, really good, but it was far too long. And it's the same about the car chase and the plane chase, and even the train kind of battle fighter. I thought they were too long for me. It could have been condensed and been more dramatic.
They would have been alright the length they were if there'd been like more happening. Or
Yeah.
I think they just tried to like pull them out too much.
I feel-
Or if it was like fighting Scotland in Skyfall, which
Yes,
made you think,
that was
wow.
really good.
Yeah.
I think they've been like trying to be eco-friendly. They've reduced and reused and recycled a little bit because they all seem like.
What rating was the old Bond film?
I can't remember.
I think
Was
they're
Same,
12.
I
They all
Yeah.
12.
They've clearly just gone, alright, we can use this from here and no one will notice. We'll put another train fight in, even though there've been 2 in the past 4 films. We'll put another mountain skiing type thing in, because people seem to like that last time. And
It just seemed to go with what they thought people would like because it was popular in the past rather than trying to think of new things that people might like.
I think they've messed up because Skyfall was so successful because it
Yeah.
wasn't exactly the same as everything we'd seen before in a Bond film.
The one thing this film did do that Skyfall didn't do for me is halfway through Skyfall the narrative loses me. I felt I could follow the narrative all the way through. I preferred the narrative in this movie. It was a bit of a simpler narrative.
It was very simple.
I liked it. It was a nice
Typical
narrative.
Bond narrative.
It was a
about
pretty classic Bond narrative.
Nothing wrong with that. So we're going to wrap it up now.
Yeah.
So Matt, sum up this film in 2 sentences.
I think it was a good film overall, although I feel it was slightly rushed. I think they tried to like fit 2 more films in when they should have like tried to just make one good Bond film rather than two sort of will probably like mediocre ones.
Aiden?
I feel it has the classic Bond elements, and a classic Bond fan will enjoy it. As a standalone film, I think it was good, but did have some flaws for me.
I thought it used far too much from the old Bonds. I think as a standalone film, it's really good, but if you've seen any of the about 6 other Bond films, then it just feels slightly tired, which isn't what you want from a Bond film. It should be quite exciting.
For me, everything about this film, the soundtrack, the narrative, everything, it's a good film, but it doesn't have that wow factor that you expect from a James Bond film. So now we're going to do our VOD points. So Matt, out of 10 VOD points, what would you give Spectre?
I think it's going to be a 6.5 for our points.
I'm going to give it 4 watch points.
I'm giving it 7 more points.
And I'm going to go for 7. So, have you seen Spectre? What did you think? Comment below in the comment section below. Also, I said this yesterday, but if you have any questions for the channel, please comment in the comment section and I will answer them every Monday. Please like this video if you like what you see, and if you want to see more content, subscribe to the channel. My name is James Rod.
I'm Matt.
Aiden.
And Tom.
And this is us signing out.